So with that, I would like to invite Mr. K Jaykumar, who is the Joint Secretary of Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, to share his thoughts on the subject.
Thank you. So happy Pongal to you all. So today being Magar Sankranti, we in South India we call it Pongal. So it's a very auspicious day. Is that my, this is the one, yeah. So I have been already, there's been a warning that, we should not go into too much into technical aspects, but I will stick to the more essential aspects of how mobile technology is very invasive and pervasive, and you all are very much aware that increasingly, even without the kind of social networking, media, and the very ingenious applications have already come up. In fact, if you go down south, you order in a restaurant, you come, the person who takes an order, nowadays, the way improvisation of technology and use proliferation has actually taken place really impresses you. It's a good thing that's happening. And India, the hallmark of, being at the cutting edge of, in fact, when you compare across all developmental sectors, people very often you would have heard this, that, telecom revolution, we are very narrowly closing down on the kind of, we are on the technology edge. Of course, IT is another domain and all that. So here I'm going to showcase to you how the industry sector, the manufacturing sector, we all talk about a lot of competitiveness that our manufacturing sector would have to kind of, the capacity that has to be built. Because GDP growth, if you especially look at one particular sector within the industrial sector, namely the MSME sector with its 16 million units and so on, with its potential to generate employment and contribute to GDP growth, 16% of the GDP growth is contributed by this MSME sector. Now, in the 12th plan, 5-year plan, there is an increasing focus on how we can give a boost to this sector, so that this sector alone, MSME sector alone, can contribute to something like 20% of the GDP by 2020. So let me quickly take you through the modalities of the groundwork that in building up a case. Now, when you talk of industry, it's not just industry again, say any enterprise for that matter, we can roll out what is called a lean ERP. You would have talked about an ERP solution, but of course now there are extensions to it. If you add the mobility front, and then if you add localization, geospatial domain, and so on, you find how it can catch up and engage the stakeholders. So, in any enterprise, we need to engage the stakeholders, internal as well as external stakeholders. Any organization is also concerned about workforce effectiveness, and it's a very multidisciplinary domain. If you look at, some of the reasons why MSME sector has actually, why we are adding to the SICK industry list every day, it's because of operations management. So here we want to showcase one application, and that would suffice. That's just it's not just that is the entirety, but it just gives you an insight into what mobile applications can actually do, how leveraging and how by leveraging the opportunities afforded by this mobile technology, you can bring in a lot more kind of energy into enterprises, into organizations, into activities, into operations, and so on. So this is a typical, what is this? Balanced scorecard approach, a typical dimensions. Very often, people think that it's only profit after tax that really ultimately matters, the financial results. But it is not that. We all know that. Inherently, we know that, and it's a very fundamental, it's an established principle now in the management circle and in various domains. People have acknowledged it. So, how effectively you utilize the resources, how you engage various employees and stakeholders, what are the strength of the internal processes that you have instituted within the organization, and how the organization is able to leverage on growth and learning, how it becomes a learning organization. These are some of the fundamental dimensions. And if you look at it, the balanced scorecard, strategies, a generation of value, these are all principles which are all very well expounded in the literature, in the technical as well as in the scientific and management literature and so on. So now, what can you possibly, by combining and merging this enterprise ERP and IT and the convergence that you talk about, information, communication, technology, what is it that one can actually achieve? Much more beyond, what we are commonly attribute, the kind of revolution, mobile revolution and its potential. It's just, it's mind-boggling, if you actually can look at. See, just one perspective I want to illustrate to you before you, the operations management prerogatives of how we can use technology, mobile technology for enhancing the efficiency with which organizations and enterprises can be run, and operations can actually be monitored and supervised for results, pursuing results, in pursuit of results. So you have, see, another thing is visualization in now mobile is as good as anything. In fact, now, given, almost all of you have made use of net banking, you have made use of IRCTC, income tax filing, anything that you can possibly do, you can now, these people like, the Samsung people, why Samsung alone? I shouldn't take any vendor's names, otherwise they'll think that I'm trying to promote one of the, it so happens that I have a Samsung Note, fairly, use it extensively. You'll find that, one of the things that actually kept, the fundamental characteristics of mobile technology, it offers mobility. So anywhere, everywhere, sitting on a beach, you would have seen a number of, pictures, showing how, sitting on a beach, you are connected always, you are always connected to the world. In fact, it becomes so much of an internal habit that I can't, anytime, you find that you're 5 minutes, you are on a coffee break, you have, you meet your people, like even in the conference, and then you have some time. The automatic temptation, it goes to your mobile, you browse and then open your mailbox and then see if there is anything. It is so that is the kind of it has gotten into the behavioral aspects of how we interact and behave in the social world. So that is the criticality. Now, why don't we use it for a very productive purpose of how do you kind of engage people for ensuring that the organization's goal are furthered. So that is the whole concept of how we have used this. This is a typical illustration. This is a prototype that we have developed and we are implementing in Central Electronics Limited. It is one of our public sector enterprises under in our Ministry of Science and Technology, Department of Scientific and Industrial Research. We manufacture the solar panels, cells, and railway signaling equipment and strategic electronics. So we wanted to, and we have found that CL being a public sector, I have been holding charge as its CMD for some time, and I found that in the effectiveness with which you rotate the working capital, manage the funds, deploy people, keep track of how much wastages, how much, and then, people think that, the costing people operate separately, financial accounts, they do separately, it's all, finally if you see, it is how effectively you manage all these are all very interoperable processes. If you see, you can't really monitor costs unless, you do something like activity-based costing. You know how much resources get utilized in every activity. What drives cost? Is it the resources, the quantity of the quantum of resources, or is it the cost of the resources? What is the factor? Unless you are able to point your finger and find out, this, and then you know that you have achieved everything. You have achieved your production targets. You have achieved your the kind of whatever turnover that you had actually planned for. But then, end of the financial year, when you do the accounting, you will find that you end up in losses. I said, what did I do wrong? I've done everything, what you have probably not done is, you have not diligently, for every transaction, for every project, you have not ensured that you get a margin. See, our, the Marwadi community or the trading, they have professionalized the whole thing. Every day, they have something called the Badta system, isn't it? Every day, they know what margin they have made. They have, that is the great strength of the whole thing. And now we have got all these milieu cultures, within our society, but yet, our MSME, our small industries have not kind of learned from it. So now the concept is, now think a little on this. Why can't we internalize in the design of the solution itself? Why can't we design a solution which will make people behave? The fundamental, the technology, one thing that it can do is it can change your behavior. We have already seen it, how it has changed our behaviors. Now, by implementing a design, by designing a solution, it will make people behave the way we want them to behave. Isn't that wonderful? So, people will log their activities, they will feed in data, which can be analyzed, there can be analytics, there can be decision support, and that you give it back to the people who take decisions. And while they take day-to-day decisions, they are aware. So it is an informed decision making, something that we have learned all along in management information systems and so on. But we didn't have a mechanism, and here is a wonderful mechanism, here is a wonderful platform on which such things can be done. So this is one of the, so we have, like the linearity concept looks at presenting and capturing information relating to various transactions, and it's all form-based transaction. You don't need to rely on DMS. Nowadays it's all very well acknowledged, a fact again. For example, we are now able to see that railway ticket, you book it on the IRCTC, you don't even have to take a printout of the ticket and then go and sit in the coach. You show the ticket examiner the SMS and then he accepts it. He doesn't even, so it's all, you see how things have changed. So the point is, we don't need documents anymore. We can make this world a much more greener place, which is what, So green technology is about, realization of, so we can have an engaging graphic user interface, we can make the interfaces adapted to the profile of the user, and we can make it data driven. Now intelligent systems, are coming, cognitive intelligence. What does it mean? Looking at the pattern of how you do, the system knows who the user. Even otherwise also, you have a specific user ID and a password. If you are part of the enterprise and if your identity is known, you can design a solution where by giving your login and ID, it knows, who are you. You are a production supervisor, or you are a marketing guy, you are a part of the sales force, or you are a vendor, or you are a supplier if you are registered. But even if an unregistered supplier, even if an unregistered user gets onto the solution architecture and then starts interacting, by the nature and pattern of interactions, you can get his identity. You can benchmark his identity. And then you can see how you can give very proactively the user interface, the forms that he needs to fill up and so on. You can delight the user by knowing his behavioral traits and then by presenting him with information that he wants. You already seen this, Amazon.com. People who have read this book have also, it gives you the recommendation and things like that. Anyhow, I'll not go into the whole thing. So that's the whole concept of Lean ERP, this solution, benchmarking it. So you can discern the pattern, and again, you can build in a lot of maturity. You can build in alerts, you can build in the error trapping routines, which even if there is a fault, you know where, at what process, at what level, So here is an interactive thing. I've shown the process flow diagrams. Now, supposing you can actually drill down. You can have slicing and dicing and all that, that you are ERP guys, you know about. For example, you view the sales target, you see the second icon, view sales target, you drill down. And then you can actually go down. So you see, you can conceptually map the process. People know what is happening to the material, what is happening to the resources, how resources are getting spent, what kind of activity is actually in progression. What are the implications of doing an activity or not doing an activity. Even if before you pick up a sales order from your client, you know whether the client is a guy who is capable of giving you payments in time, within a lead time that you have prescribed, or he is going to be a defaulter. Because in the past track record, any behavior in a past track, the data, that is what is the data-driven approach. Even before you take an order, the salesperson goes to the field and then, he's in the profile of the field, he gets the data about, how he has, within what time he has made his payment. So your sundry data does not keep on increasing. You know that, you can pick and choose the kind of orders. It's up to you. Whereas public sectors, what they do, they keep on taking orders, whatever they get. Without knowing the implication. Some payments come late, very late, and then they are unable to discern because they don't segment the market. So this is born out of the experience in CEL. So we have avoided all this by so you can have the dynamic visualization with trails and traceability. You can trace the flow. You can have the process flow, how things interoperable. And you can have computational models that give you analytics that can, for example, integrating activity-based costing. So this is the context that I was trying to talk to you about. 26 million micro, small and medium enterprises, 13.3 million small and medium enterprises, 45% of the industrial operations, they contribute to 40% of the exports, 70% of GDP. So you look at the kind of, what is required now. We require systems, which can be now this solution that has been developed as a prototype in CEL. Now the vision is, why can't we put it on a cloud sourcing? Put it on a cloud-based architecture, let people pay for the services. We all know how long it takes for an ERP to get implemented. 80% of the ERP implementations fail. This is the statistics which you know. Why? Because engagement. Now mobile is a fantastic way of engaging people. People are glued into the visualization. They know by the fruits of the the small little prototype that you are able to roll out, they experience success and then they get latched on. So that is user engagement. So that user engagement is possible when we, with the use of, for example, look at Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka is building a whole Android ecosystem. This is the information report, economy report, which was just released in 2012. So let me not go into the whole thing. There's a history behind the whole thing, because I don't want to deprive the other users, other speakers, because when the time is limited. But this presentation is there, and we have also published a few papers. So even if you can write out, the lean ERP solution for MSME or something like that in the Google, I think you'll come up with a paper. It's recently published in the International Journal of Electronics Communication and Computer Engineering Journal. So there are plenty of, even our own conference website will give you. So I'll just go through the motions of quickly giving you a snapshot of what all it involved. See, again, we should not think that it's going to be a very easy exercise also. The bulk of the hard work goes into understanding the processes and gathering the requirements. So this is where manpower deployment, we looked at the whole business processes. Every goal can be split into down. If you look at the drill down approach of how the goals can be looked at in terms of functions and processes and activities with policies and business rules and so on, you can actually give a new definition to the roles, which is the kind of activities that a given person kind of participates in, and how you can get information from the user, enterprise user. That's what activity logging is all about. You can get information, capture information at the point where it gets generated. A sales force going into the field, it picks up a sales inquiry. That is logged onto the system so that can be tracked and then converted into an order. So that is the great advantage. And you can look at an architecture, layered architecture like this, visualization, command control, and implementation layer with its various session management becomes very important, again. So there are technological challenges. It's not that it is without technology challenges, but these are all, are something there is a solution. Of course, there is a challenge, there is also a solution. A very innovative engineer solutions are all possible. And here you have the entire package diagram. Just warn me when there is, So here is a process simplification. Another thing is, we implement it. The design is, conceived and conceptualized on the basis of much more simplification. Here is a case, where any decision, any process, the process flow, you don't think it as a very long, lengthy, process where there are a number of activities with many people participating. You simplify it so that any process transaction can be, there can be an initiator, there can be a reviewer, and there's a decision making. Simplify process, the process engineering that we all talk about. And it's all form based. So form based transactions, a form can serve as both a report as well as a data entry. Some fields are all visual, where they give you data which you can see. It's a context based. So you see the context as you keep on entering. For example, a worker in a machine shop, a shop floor, he does production. He enters the data of how many units he has produced in a workstation or whatever. And then while doing it, he knows yesterday how much did he produce, what is the weekly average, what is the monthly average. You see, it gives a feedback to him. As and when he does the job, so what a wonderful way of how he can. So you make him more knowledgeable. He is also much more, this is called empowering, isn't it? The worker is also empowered to know, why is it, how is this? He is able to benchmark his own performance rather than anybody else benchmarking performance, he benchmarks his own performance. So that's the whole. So you have a whole lot of these decisions, production planning and scheduling, reducing the cost of production, profitability margin, on a day, balance sheet, trial balances can be calculated every day. It can give you a profit and loss account for any period. So that is the beauty, on the fly. Transactions can be built, it can flow, and then decisions come to you on the fly. As you sit in the beach or sit in a coffee shop, etc. In cafe day, you get the for the accounting period this quarter. What is the so that is the beauty of how this kind of lean ERP, and it's all transactions. See, look at the beauty of any interaction. There is something. Many people attend meetings. But after the meeting, things are all forgotten. We know this. In bureaucracy, we do this every day in and day out. And then when you are finished with the meeting, we don't even, take the minutes of the meeting. And even minutes are recorded. What happens to that later on is something which, we don't diligently follow up. Whereas, here, you just capture what is most essential. You log it in, and then the system makes it available to you and gives you an alert, and then gives you in the context. So, but designing that, is where the real challenge is. So, how do we design? So, we require more designers. If you can actually, the technology, the challenge is not in technology, but in designing. So, that is what the kind of insight that we have drawn. Activity-based costing, I will not go into it, but you will find that, all these, how you can look at performance measures, how you can have metrics, how you can have dashboards, scorecards, etc. for every user, adapted to the role of the user, responsibilities of the user. And then the ubiquity and intelligence of, it's all very well known, I don't want to kind of, go too much into it. And rapidly prototyping. So, see, rapid prototyping, any ERP application does not take, within 6 months you give me a challenge, you tell me an enterprise where ERP has been rolled out and implemented successfully in 6 months, impossible, even as you gather the functional requirements, that itself would take about, 3-4 months, and then you keep on tendering, and then you even to grope around to identify the right kind of, solution provider, that is just yet another thing. The challenge of, taking tasks from them, these people are also wonderful marketing people, they come and then tell you, our ERP will do anything, will fix everything. No, it's not. But why then, ERP is not very successful in every organization? It's a whole lot of, art involved in. It's an art as well as a science, and so on, so on. I mean, I don't want to kind of, further go into all that. It's the diligence with which, very few people have mastered the art of how to take in the right kind of vendors, who can provide. And nowadays, bespoke application is the best. If you ask me, born out of experience, I have been in this ERP design and IT for a long time, for almost more than 2 decades. You can. So I believe that bespoke application in CSIR we have rolled out a bespoke application across all the 37 national laboratories. It's all customized, rapidly reusable and architected software using a lot of modular architecture. We engaged 4 consultants together and then made interoperable architectures. We gave them an architecture and said you will have to follow this architecture. So the degree of our involvement was much more than in any conventional thing. So once we design a beautiful architecture, one that would cater to most of the MSME, let us say, then we can make it and then deploy it on a cloud base, and then the solution can be adapted on the fly to a thing. So this is the kind of direction in which the thought process is moving. Very soon we will be having a public domain website where we would also invite you to participate. We have spoken to Amarendra Sinha, he is the Development Commissioner of MSME in the MSME Ministry. And then, so there's a lot more. You can also make it location specific. When a salesperson goes to the field, these are all very well known. You can actually know whether he's actually gone to the field or not. So these are all localization. You can get the lat long and all that. You can verify, validate, and so on. You can characterize the problem space with a lot of dashboards and event triggers, indications, alerts, system states, expectations, and exceptions, warnings, and so on. So you can also make it very dynamic and profile based, and it enables interactive invocation. In fact, nowadays, another experiment that we're trying to do is, how we can, nowadays there's a lot of energy consciousness, can we contribute by saving energy and all that, So you build your own house, you have an architecture, you do it on AutoCAD, right? So when you do it on AutoCAD, can you take those parameters and then, you can calculate how much space, what is the airflow requirement, what is the ambient, what kind of a lighting, and then you can do a lot of passive designing. When you do passive designing, where to locate the windows, doors, etc. See, all that is a interactive visualization. You can all get it done even before you actually submit your drawings. So the technology, it is far more implication than you and me can imagine. And every kind of a group, or nowadays, we also, that is the reason why we involve the student community, because we find that the students are also extremely vibrant force. Anybody coming for summer training, I don't say no. You said, there are enough organizations even within our own CSIR and DSIR. So you said, go to any of our CSIR labs, or you come to our CEL, and then, take up any problems. There are enough problems that our industries confront, and then, we can, and some things grow out of that. So how that, so in shorter lead times, lesser investment, it's possible to roll out. So I think, you can go in for a very parameterized design. I have not talked about that much, but you can configure a solution so that it can get adapted to different contexts. For example, in MSME alone, you can talk about leather cluster, automotive cluster, and so on. So for each cluster, the requirement would be different. So you can parameterize solution, and you can set the parameters so that it can get adapted to a certain cluster. So I think, I don't want to. So that's the lean ERP flows from the term lean organization and lean manufacturing, which you're all familiar with. So how you reduce inventory and how you eliminate overprocessing. So that's, and you can of course adopt value engineering. So these are some of the dashboards, which is only a prototype. So thank you. So I have to rush.